I want to talk to you about a tragedy that happened that night. Trayford Pellerin is dead. It's a tragedy for all of those who loved him. I want to acknowledge his family who have asked the community to have a conversation about this situation. If the Lafayette community has a positive conversation about this event, then it will have a very positive impact on many people. This is also a tragedy for our community. People from other states who have come here for their own reasons and tried to inflame our Lafayette community have not met with a great response. Lafayette is a diverse and unique place, and people come here from all over the world to experience our great Cajun and Southern food, music, history, dealing back to Spanish and French explorers, and our tremendous weather. But most of all, they come because the people of Lafayette are a welcoming and open, generous, and hardworking, and most of all, they love Acadiana and want a safe place to live and raise their children. Our community has suffered a tragedy, and rather than see violence, our community has seen this as an opportunity to see positives. This period of time has been a healing process for our city and community. This has also been a tragedy for law enforcement officers in our community. The police officers involved in this case have had their entire careers judged by the events that took place that Friday, August night, and they have been clearly impacted by this tragedy. I was in the Marine Corps Reserves in the 1960s and trained to fight with my fellow Marines whenever our country needed us. I was never called to go to war, but I was trained and ready. We trained to deal with death in the Marine Corps because it is a workplace reality in that profession that Marines will die to accomplish their mission. However, I never had a job quite like these officers who protect us and are trained to keep our community safe. They leave their houses every morning and kiss their wives and children goodbye and know that they face the real chance of being killed that day by someone they may come in contact with on their shift. They prepare for that and are trained in the best methods and techniques to allow them to accomplish their mission of protecting all of us and keeping our community safe. But they know they are just a second away from never seeing their loved ones again. And despite that fact, they go to work. And when they are called on to respond to calls for service like 911 calls, and you will hear some of those shortly, they do not have the choice of running away and hiding. They run to the danger and are tasked with removing a dangerous threat and protecting the innocent civilians who are present. The officers in this case responded to a dangerous situation. We will talk shortly about their frame of mind when they responded, what information they were given, and what they did to handle that situation. I think it is very clear that the officers involved in this matter have been seriously impacted by the events that took place that night on the Evangeline Thruway, just a few blocks south of I-10. Our community is an amazing one. I have met with many people since this event took place, and our community desires to have a safe place to live, work, and raise children. People from every neighborhood in Lafayette want this to be a safe place, and we are working extremely hard every day with law enforcement to accomplish that mission. And this crosses all racial and ethnic groups in Lafayette. We are very diverse, a diverse community, welcoming people with ancestors of the Hispanic, Indian, Middle Eastern, African, European, and Asian world communities. Our people here are our most extraordinary asset. Our community is healing from this event. I'm going to and law enforcement's role in this incident and provide you with a deliberate and comprehensive overview of the investigations that took place following it. And I did say investigations, plural. I wanted to ensure a number of things: that we fully investigated this incident, that we addressed security concerns for our community, and that once we had investigated, that we were as open and transparent about the process and the results as we could be. Today, we're going to have a discussion about a very narrow decision that has been made. That is whether the grand jury in this case has found credible and reliable evidence sufficient to convince a jury beyond a reasonable doubt that a crime has occurred. The grand jury, by statute in Louisiana, is to indict an individual when the grand jurors find that the evidence would justify a conviction absent an explanation or contradiction. The historic function of the grand jury is to guard against government oppression against a citizen by screening criminal allegations through a panel of one's peers prior to any charge actually being filed. In Louisiana, the district attorney can bring a case to the grand jury, and it can then investigate the matter to determine whether criminal conduct has occurred, and then it decides whether or not to indict an individual. Louisiana law goes to great lengths to keep grand jury proceedings secret and to penalize disclosure of any matters occurring before the grand jury. This case was presented by my prosecutors, who I have to tell you did an excellent job. They worked very hard on this case. On numerous dates, they presented this evidence to the grand jury, and they have returned a decision as to whether or not any criminal charges should be brought against anyone in this case. The decision to prosecute must be made outside of any outside influences. Pressure from outside the office that you may see on the news from other parts of the country. It is imperative that the decision to prosecute remain unencumbered by emotional or political agendas, especially in these troubled times in our country. I have strived to do that in this and every case that my office handles. My prosecutors are also dedicated to that. In Louisiana, there is a procedure for the investigation of police shootings. The best opportunity for an independent investigation is that it be done by an outside independent agency. That is why in this case, the Louisiana State Police was called to the scene and began to investigate as timely and expeditiously as possible to give their completed investigation to my district attorney's office. They did an excellent job, worked tirelessly. Louisiana State Police conducted an exhaustive investigation in this case with over 27 reports and supplemental reports, countless videos from businesses, civilians, police dash cam, and body-worn cameras, and evidence collected throughout the investigation. When I received the report, then my office began its own investigation through the grand jury process. I'm here to report the result of the multiple investigations in this case, and to provide you with a good amount of video and photographic evidence from that night and following that night. As I said earlier, if civilians see illegal or dangerous conduct, they can run away and hide from the danger. But police officers cannot. They have to run to the danger, remove that threat to public safety as part of their daily job. They have a duty to risk their lives to save ours. As soon as I saw the videos, I felt the same emotions as most people would. Louisiana State Police provided a report that considered use of force standards and whether the officers complied with those standards. I will go into greater detail on that in a few minutes. If we did not have evidence sufficient to prove a case beyond a reasonable doubt, then we are ethically obligated not to charge anyone in a case. There are no disputes in this case over the facts, except whether the shooting was justified. This was a case involving uniformed officers, marked police vehicles, officers dispatched to the scene after 911 calls about a suspect with a knife. The officers took action. Were those actions proper? The United States Supreme Court tells us in a 1989 case that we need to look at this case from the perspective of a reasonable officer on the scene rather than with 20/20 hindsight. The Supreme Court gave us further guidance when they said the calculus of reasonableness must embody allowance for the fact that police officers are often forced to make split-second judgments in circumstances that are tense, uncertain, and rapidly evolving about the amount of force that is necessary in a particular situation. Let's talk about the events of August 21st of 2020. Let me describe the area for you. In the immediate area surrounding that Circle K Shell gas station at the corner of Evangeline Thruway and Castile Avenue, just south of the intersection of I-49 and I-10 in Lafayette, there are 9 hotels, a Waffle House restaurant, and the Northgate Mall. On Friday, August 21st, 2020, at 7:43 p.m., a 911 call was received complaining of a person in a Circle K at 1912 Evangeline Thruway in Lafayette regarding a black male customer who was walking around the store and scaring the customers. You will see in a few minutes the video from inside that store, and you will get your first look at Trayford Pellerin on the evening of August 21st of 2020. There's a map for you to take a look at of the general area we're talking about. And a little bit better photo there. It may be a little confusing to some people, but there are 2 Circle Ks, as I previously said, within 1,000 feet of each other. One is on the east side of the highway, just north of the intersection of Castile Avenue and Evangeline Thruway. This is where Trayford Pellerin is first seen at about 7:30 p.m. that night, standing inside the Circle K convenience store with a small satchel over his shoulder, not talking to anyone and not shopping. This is important to this case, so let's watch the video of Trayford Pellerin in the first Circle K. It is the longest video we will watch today, but it will show you what he did shortly after 7:30 that evening and how he appeared and how he acted. That's Trayford Pellerin entering the store.
You from here? You from here? You're not from here? Okay. 1680. 1680. You went outside. That person you're looking for went outside. What you looking for went outside. Now, down. How much? 5. All right, 5,000 feet. I got that with him. You
743, 57 seconds.
Yes, can you send a police and IT for right now? We asked somebody who's kind of spooky. He's kind of scared me. He's a red male. Not even English, so he made him believe. All right. He's kind of spooky, spooky about it. He's husband and all. He's walking around like I'm thinking he was trying to say something, but I'm not sure. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. All right. You want to see your idea? Yeah. All right, cool. Can I have someone? Yes, please. Get it going. That's it. Huh? Please tell me someone. I didn't want to do the already. Hey, man. I need, no. Hey, what do we do? Right on three? Thank you. Hi, we did that, it's now brought up, in the moment. Huh? You okay? That's it? 2 and 3. Who's that? Harry, are we? Alright. Well, we put pretty good up here.
So Trayford Pellerin has left the store. You saw the customers and you saw Trayford Pellerin in that store. The customers were concerned about him and for him. Let's see what happened next. This is a clip that shows the second 911 call.
Seven, 8, 9, 7 seconds.
Yes, I wanted to put your officer on the report confirmation stuff. You got to do it, it's okay, because my customer is certified by him. Okay. All right. No, I want just one more. Thank you. Now we're going. Can I have someone?
You may not have seen it in the video, but Trayford Pellerin is holding his silver knife in his left hand when he leaves the store this time. Let's look at another angle. In the left hand was the knife. Now we'll show you a still photo showing that same silver knife in Pellerin's hand. There it is. There was a third 911 call that's made after someone at the store sees that Pellerin has a knife.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. All right. Yeah, thanks.
PM, 33 seconds.
Ma'am, I'm supposed to keep watching over. Now you put out a light. See, I just put some people names, throwing things in there. Now my customers is really getting terrified. Yeah, he throwing a couple, I let it go. Cause I mean. Okay. Yes, ma'am. And I'm really terrified. I don't wanna like to go and keep hollering and stuff.
I ain't going to women. Come on. I know she that. I know the black shit will come out.
Yeah, it's him hollering.
And I got to draw it for you.
Okay. All right. Okay. Can I help you, ma'am? Continue with your $5.
A civilian called 911 at this time, and the first officer arrives on the scene.
8 o'clock p.m., 53 seconds, August 21, 2020.
Where's your emergency?
Yes, ma'am. Do they have an officer coming and circulate on, night evangelism?
At where? Which birthday?
No, North Evangelist, do whatever ain't got a knife that he,
Are you talking about the one in 1912 Northeast Evangelist Thruway?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and who has a knife?
It's a guy with a white shirt that they couldn't on, he's outside, and everybody's scared of that store.
Is he white or Hispanic?
It's a black, man.
White shirt, do you know what kind of pants he has on?
Oh, it's some black and white shirt.
Okay, is he arguing with somebody? Why does he have a knife out?
I don't know, ma'am.
Oh, okay, so you just drove by and saw this?
No, I came in my truck, I was going in the store and I got scared, and then when I was getting ready to try to back up, he threw that cup of soda
Who did he throw the cup of soda at?
towards my vehicle.
Okay, were you and him having any kind of altercation?
No, ma'am, I don't even
Oh.
know so like this, but I'm scared for the lady. She's kind of old in the store that's working, and she's doing it too. And all the customers is scared.
Okay, but is he hitting anybody or trying to hit anybody at this time?
No, ma'am, he just put the knife back in that little pouch.
Has the pouch on his hip where the knife?
Yes, ma'am, it looks like he's walking, he's moving now.
Which way is he walking?
Look, the officer right there, they have seen him right there, they can't. I see the officer coming this way.
All right, and which way is he walking right now?
He's crossing over to go like towards, the motel.
Is it across the street to head to the motel area?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Did you want to leave your name or remain anonymous?
And I'm gonna wait for the officer to get on.
So you're gonna speak with the police?
Yes, ma'am.
And your name?
My name is,
You're gonna wait at the Circle K?
yes, ma'am.
Okay, what color kind of vehicle are you in?
In a, gray Altima. I think
You
he's
don't have-
going after him, yes.
Okay. You don't have any damage on your vehicle though, correct?
No, ma'am, he just threw a drink at my
Okay.
vehicle. He just wait, that's it.
Okay. We are sending the police, okay? If anything changes, read out 911.
He's walking back over here, the officer, okay, there he goes. I see
The officer sees him?
I think so.
Okay.
They're coming after him right now.
Okay, all right. We are sending help, okay?
No, okay.
All right.
Now let's see from the officer body cameras what took place just after 8 o'clock p.m. on the Evangeline Thruway in Lafayette.
Get over here! Hey! Get over here! You're gonna get run over. You need to come over here. What part of you need to come in from? I you don't get over here. Get your hands in your pocket. Let me see your hands! Let me see your hands! Get on the ground! 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 They want to communicate there for the boys, it will not work. Be advised, nothing's in his hand. Left hand, left hand. Get on the ground! Get on the ground! Get on the ground! Get on the ground!
That officer told Tayford Pellerin to drop the knife and get on the ground numerous times, and his taser deployment did not work because only one prong hit Pellerin. The other prong likely hit Pellerin's satchel, which did not allow the taser to have an electrical connection. You saw from that video that a second officer also deployed his taser, but it was a single side angle moving target shot, and that second taser deployment also did not work. You saw Pellerin turn and face the officer from extremely close range with a knife in his left hand. He was definitely within 21 feet of the officer, and instead of deploying the taser, the officer at that point would have been justified in using deadly force by shooting Pellerin with his duty weapon. However, that officer used great discipline and restraint. Tayford Pellerin could have dropped the knife, and he would have lived. But he turned and continued to ignore the officer's commands to drop the knife and get on the ground. As Pellerin continued to evade officers, he armed himself with a knife, which he held in his left hand. The officer gave Pellerin multiple commands to get on the ground, but he did not comply. Pellerin walked backwards, and the officer deployed his taser at Pellerin's front torso. The taser was ineffective and did not incapacitate him. Pellerin verbally threatened to stab the officer. You saw that previously. Let's look at a still photograph of Pellerin with the knife in his hand when he turned to confront that officer. There it is, his plane in his left hand. At that point, that officer, with his training, could have shot Pellerin at that point in time, and he would have been justified. It's all part of the training. It's all part of what officers are trained to do, but he did not. Let's look at this incident from another officer's body camera. The officers are concerned about the knife, of course, as it is a deadly weapon. And they are also very aware of the civilians who come within feet of the armed Tayford Pellerin during this incident. Please watch the lady pumping gas on the far left pump as Pellerin approaches the convenience store and tries to enter the store. There are numerous people inside that store, and the officers cannot let the armed Tayford Pellerin get inside, where he may kill someone or take a hostage. Let's watch now from another officer's body camera.
Alright, where you at?
Drop the knife! Drop it! Hey, taser! Back up! Get back! Back up! Get back!
Officers told Pellerin to get on the ground and to stop multiple times. He did not comply and walked towards the Shell gas station parking lot, still armed with a knife. An officer near the Shell station powered on his taser and approached Pellerin as he neared the lot. He told Pellerin to drop the knife. You counted them, I counted them, at least 10 times in that short span of time, as you will soon hear and see on that officer's body-worn camera footage. Pellerin avoided an officer who attempted to block his path to the Shell station with a police unit and kept walking with the knife in his left hand. A canine officer arrived and took his dog from his unit and moved towards the Shell station a few feet behind the officers who were telling Pellerin to drop his knife and get on the ground. The dog is a police officer and is highly trained to attack movement when his handler lets him go. Remember that. Highly trained to attack movement when his handler lets him go. The dog saw multiple potential targets during these few minutes, and the canine officer could not let him go for a number of reasons. First, Pellerin was still armed with a knife, and if he deployed the dog, it was likely that the dog would be killed and the officers would still be dealing with an armed suspect. Second, there were so many people in the immediate area, including a number of officers within 40 feet of Pellerin, that it was highly likely that the dog would have attacked an officer when released. This would have resulted in the loss of at least one officer dealing with a canine dog, removing him from being of any help to the other officers in dealing with Pellerin and this situation. Let's look at the video from the canine officer's perspective.
Hey, get on the ground! Get on the ground! What's going on? Shots fired! Shots fired! Shots fired!
Many officers then arrived, and a group of 5 then followed Pellerin with weapons drawn as he walked towards the Shell station convenience store, and the officers communicated to each other that the taser had not worked. The officer saw customers inside the convenience store and saw that Pellerin was armed with a knife and told him, "Do not go in the store. Do not go in the store." Seconds later, Pellerin attempted to open the door to the convenience store, and officers fired 11 rounds in 2.4 seconds to prevent him from doing so. Amazingly, there was no contagion fire, as is seen in some situations, where an officer may shoot because others are shooting, and they may continue to shoot later than the others. There were 5 officers within 20 feet of Pellerin when he tried to open the door, and 3 fired the 11 rounds. 2 other officers did not fire, as from their angle, behind Pellerin was a glass window with customers inside the convenience store, and they could not guarantee that none of their rounds would pass through or miss Pellerin and wound or kill those inside the store.